There's a scent that fills the air as a parent when you know there are no more explosive diapers to change. Your kids can get their own breakfast, even if it means spraying the kitchen down later with a garden hose, and they can entertain themselves, even if that means they've created their own fight club in the back bedroom. It's the scent of freedom. I was able to count on one hand the years remaining until my two sons were to set off on their own to make their own decisions, yet calling home to resolve issues requiring my advice. It just wouldn't be happening from their childhood bedroom that I transferred into my writing oasis the minute they flew the coop. I could count on one hand when each boy would turn 18 and my husband and I would have adult lives. But then it happened. I found myself wandering the aisles of the drugstore filling my basket with items to disguise the one item I was there to buy. At the checkout counter, I learned that the cashier was one of them. You know, the type that has to comment on everything she scans. The line behind me was her growing audience. This woman was their entertainment, and they were applauding my 4th of July decor when she held up my home pregnancy test. In her deep-fried southern drawl, she said, "Bless your heart. You know what's causing this, right?" I smiled on the surface, but I never flipped someone off so hard in my mind. I hauled my embarrassed 31-year-old ass to the car and drove to the nearest toilet. I found myself in a public restroom hover peeing on a stick, half worried that the prisoners outside mowing the lawn in the park would come in to use the facilities, and the other half was worrying that I was peeing on the stick wrong. Seated on a park bench for the next 3 minutes waiting for one line or two felt like I could have incubated and birthed this maybe baby 2 times over. When the alarm sounded, I discovered I had, indeed, peed on the stick wrong. I was thankful the twin pack was on sale that day, and I headed back to the office where a half-dozen construction workers were eating their lunch. I smiled as I wandered over to grab a disposable cup and brought it into the bathroom, hopefully going unnoticed. I went with the dunking method on round 2. My personal office was located about 50 paces down the hall, and before I could take a load off, the digital stick in my pocket began shrieking, like a howler being delivered to Harry Potter. Bun in the oven, Operation Freedom terminated. I refused to believe my oldest was going to be 15 years old when this new child sprouted from my lady garden. Life was about to change. Midnight diaper blowouts, purchasing Hooter hiders online, and squirting breast milk across the room from engorgement. The conclusion I came to was that my first two were just practice. This one's going to Harvard. I went to lunch with friends on the day I went into labor, only I didn't know I was going into labor. I was in the hospital a handful of times prior with false aches and pains. I mean, hell, I hadn't had a baby in 10 years. So that day I ordered the largest burger on the menu, with extra onions. I was told not to go back to the hospital until I was having contractions so strong I couldn't talk through them. But I was brilliant. Doesn't pregnancy brain make you smarter? I wasn't going to go back until I had an army crawl out to the car, which is exactly what happened within hours of eating the most delicious burger in ever. Each time I exhaled, I felt the need to apologize to anyone within 10 feet for the displeasing aroma. My husband drove to the hospital like he was auditioning for NASCAR, while my high-pitched shrieking serenaded fellow drivers on all sides. Have you ever been to Florida during Bike Week? He made the impossible happen. My newest baby boy essentially fell out of my vagina as I made my way to the hospital bed from the wheelchair after being told, "Hold on, the doctor isn't here yet." To which I replied in my most maniacal voice, "That is not my problem." Within 10 minutes of arrival, my tiny Xavier stared up at me, latched onto my breast that would feed him for the next 14 months. His body nestled into my body, the body that was seemingly made for this third son of mine. The fact that I now needed 3 hands to count down to freedom was no longer an issue. I thought maybe, just maybe, having an infant in the house meant that Fight Club would cease to exist. It didn't. Swinging from the towel rack in the bathroom as if it were a jungle gym, and random "I didn't do it" holes in the walls coexisted along with it. A few weeks after giving birth, I was in the living room with my husband watching TV while he held our sleeping baby. He looked over at me and observed the way I was sitting. It was as if I were still holding my feeding infant. I was tense, with shoulders shrugged up to my ears. I was watching, yet not really seeing. No matter what I tried to do, I just couldn't relax. I never was calm enough to stop the intrusive thoughts. I always thought, he'll be kidnapped. Is he still breathing? He's going to die. I had postpartum depression. After my official diagnosis, I took medication, I rested, and I ate well. Soon I was back to work, and my baby was safe at home in the arms of my husband. But the intrusive thoughts continued to invade my personal space until I completely broke down and landed in the hospital. It was either that or someone was going to find my body. I was hospitalized 3 times total and faced 6 rounds of electroconvulsive therapy because I was medication resistant. I wasn't getting any better. A mother should never feel like her family would be better off without her. As it turns out, I never healed from postpartum depression because the year-long episode triggered the bipolar disorder I now believe has always existed within me. I'll be on medication for the rest of my life, and I'll always be watching my back. I'm going to suffer through the lowest of lows, and at times I'll feel so high I may think I could actually fly. I will ask my loved ones to talk me off the ledge when it becomes necessary, and it will become necessary. I still need 3 hands to count down to the remodel of my son's bedroom. When I send him off to Harvard. But I'm determined to be here when that happens.